Hey, welcome everybody. This is another installment of Pages Promotions, the 2020 Virtual Summer Book Festival. Today, our featured author is Chelsea Gouin. Hi, Chelsea.
Hey.
This is going to be a fun conversation today for a couple of reasons. First of all, Chelsea is a debut author. Her book just came out at the end of 2019. And unfortunately, with COVID, we haven't had a chance to really run out into the world and promote it. So
Right.
we're going to have a little conversation about those conundrums in a minute. But first, I want to show you guys the book. I'm hoping that it's going to come through. So this is, look at her. She's got hers too. So that's The Midnight Man, which is a really cool, we had a lot of fun with this cover, didn't we?
Oh my gosh, I think I cried when I saw it. Was beautiful.
We had a good time with it. Give us a quick synopsis of the book, Chelsea.
All right, so The Midnight Man is based on the legend of the Midnight Game. It is about a girl who's about to go off to college on the other side of the state. So her friends decide to throw her like one last party. And to liven up the party, they decide they're going to play the Midnight Game, thinking it's just a bit of fun until they realize they've actually, summoned a demon.
Oops.
Yep. And then the rest of the book is, a game of cat and mouse of survival.
Okay. I had a great time with this book. I mean, oh my gosh, you did such a good job with it. I loved helping you to publish. This was
And knowing you don't like horror, that is actually like a really big compliment.
Yeah, blame Andy Lockwood for that. I think he's turned me to the dark side.
Good. Welcome.
I was really fascinated with this because you walked a super fine line between the supernatural scary stuff that I can tolerate no problem and the blood, guts, gore scary stuff that I have issues with.
Yeah.
You were like walking that line really close. There were a couple of times I had to stop reading and like close the laptop and walk away for a couple minutes and come back. But how did you decide where you were going to draw that line? How did you know that at one point maybe you were stepping over it?
From reactions from other people, I had my friends kind of like, as I was writing it, hey, like, what do you think of this? And Gabe was one of them. So Gabe actually was on team Make It More Bloody. And I had another friend was like, my one friend's she's a huge horror fan. She's like, even this kind of turned my stomach. She's like, maybe dial that down a little bit.
Okay. So the beta reading process is really important to you.
Yeah, I mean, because my friends know me best, obviously, and I have friends that are kind enough that won't just tell me what they think I want to hear, that they'll give me their honest reactions. And because my friends have a variety of different interests in their reading, I get a nice different opinions.
Yeah, you get a real eclectic group of people giving you their take on it rather than, yes, dear, that's very nice.
Right.
So it's based on an urban legend game.
Yes.
Where did you first come up with that? And then I want to know, what was the trigger that said, hey, there's another story in this? How did you make that leap?
So it actually started, a couple of friends and I, we used to make horror movies together. It used to be our thing. And another friend of mine actually is the one who found the Midnight Game. And he was like, hey, let's make a movie about a bunch of people that, like, we all play the same character in every movie that we're in. It's kind of like a running joke. So he's like, what about our characters play this Midnight Game? And it was like, great. But then it just kind of like fizzled out. We never actually made it. And then a couple of years later, a movie was made based on the Midnight Game, and it was awful. Like, they didn't actually like read the original legend at all. And then that just kind of prompted me to look it up again. And I was reading threads of different people that played it in real life. And I was like, this is fun. It was vague enough that I felt like I could play with it, like the legend. Mm-hmm. The reactions that people had of playing it. There's a bunch of YouTube videos of people playing it, and like it just looks like a good time. And I thought it was a world that I could play in. I got a little bit meta, so that's actually why the characters in the book are decide to film it, was just kind of like a little nudge at my friends and I, like, hey,
Right.
remember when we were going to film it?
Yeah, yeah.
So that was just a little nudge, like a little wink at my friends. But then I just thought, like, wouldn't it be funny if people did go to, like, hey, let's film us playing this game, but then it ended up being real. I just thought it would be a fun playground to mess around in.
Absolutely, it is. I mean, you handled it really, really well. I know that you are an immense LGBTQ supporter, which I think is fantastic. Um, was that a conscious choice to include some of those elements in this book? Or is it just what the characters told you they were, who they were? I mean, did you set out to bring those elements? And I don't want to give too much away.
Right.
Because I want people to enjoy the book when they read it. But I know that you introduced some of those elements into the story. And what I'm wondering is was that a conscious choice? Or did that just happen through the process of writing?
As a teacher, before I worked in special ed, I worked in gen ed, and I was part of the LGBTQA, which is the Alliance. And I would hear from students and hearing their stories of coming out, and then that courage. It was always something I've wanted to put in my pages, is just for others to find that solace of, like, it's okay. So I knew there was going to be LGBTQ representation in the book. It just didn't come until later. One of my LGBTQ characters was actually straight in the beginning.
That's interesting.
Right? And then halfway through, I realized that their relationship was actually going to be a bigger part of the story. So he became she.
So she essentially came out in the middle of your book.
Yes.
That's pretty cool.
Yes.
That's pretty cool. I gotta say, you have a fluid writing style that I really admire. You transition really well between the stuff that makes me queasy and the warm, fuzzy stuff that kind of makes up for the stuff that makes me queasy. So I really applaud that. And I think that's a really big reason why people should go out and read this book.
I've always said that I kind of wanted to be like a roller coaster. I want you to feel like, oh, this is a nice, safe scene. I'm getting warm and fuzzy. And then, like, in the next second, I want to, like, jerk you into that bloody, gory stuff.
Yeah, because, ripping the rug out from under people is fun. Yeah.
Keep you on your toes. You don't know what's going to happen next.
Yeah. Is it a haunted house? Is it a harlequin? We just don't know.
A little bit of both.
Yeah.
Sounds like my kind of book.
All right.
Honestly, yeah, it does. It really does.
Xander, it really is a great read, and I'm so impressed with Chelsea as a first-time author. I've published over 200 books for independent authors, and I got to tell you, she's got it right out of the gate. So anybody who wants
to hear.
Well, and it's a fun read too.
It's quick too.
It goes really fast. It was really fun to sit down and read. More fun to edit it. Because I got to go, oh, what's going on here? Yeah. So I'm looking forward to the next book you write, because this was...
I just started writing the next one. So
good for you. What's the subject matter in this one?
It's going to be horror again, but a little bit more of, like, the psychological aspect. It's actually a story I had written back in middle school, and I was cleaning out my closet, and I found a letter that a teacher had wrote me. About the story, but in middle school it was like 10 pages long, and I thought it was, like, so good. But this teacher wrote me a letter after they read it, and they said, just these really nice things. And I was 12, and it's not good. Like, they were being very kind in the letter. But now that now I'm old, I'm an adult, I've been writing, I've been reading a lot more horror. I think I can tackle it better, like what I was trying to do. So it's just kind of like a key.
So you're reimagining that story, giving it new life?
Yes. So it's basically, again, about a group of friends, but this time it's about a new girl that moves into town, and then suddenly these accidents start happening to this group of friends once this girl starts coming around. And I wanted to play off of the idea of, like, a small town, small mind, and having grown up in a small town, seeing it happen, and just kind of, like, up it a little bit more, make it just a little bit more exaggerated. of like, oh, clearly it's this new girl because she doesn't fit in. So it's kind of that, is it who really is doing all of this? Is it the new girl? Is it someone else we know? So I just kind of want to play in that kind of vein a little bit more.
Absolutely. That's very cool. And what's the time period set for the new book?
It'll be present day, but it's also going to be a YA because I find that technology makes writing horror very hard.
Tell me about that. Why?
Because with cell phones, you have immediate access to help. You have a camera that like immediately gives you evidence. So that's why, like with the Midnight Man specifically, like I liked that legend because you can't use your phones in it. That's cheating. So that did away with the cell phone era. And then for this YA horror, I want them young enough to where not all of them would have a cell phone and they can easily like snap a picture or, in today's digital world, it's just so easy to.
So what you're trying to do by limiting technology in your stories is make it harder to figure out the whodunit part.
Yes.
Okay.
I think technology, and especially cell phones, because it's portable, like that's your scapegoat. Like, evidence is right there in your hands. Like,
yeah, well, we're seeing that on the streets right now, all over the country.
Exactly.
People are becoming roving reporters all on their own.
Exactly. And I actually was reading an interview with Stephen King, and he was saying the same thing. Not Stephen King, I'm sorry, R.L. Stine was saying how a lot of his horror stories wouldn't work in the modern era because of technology.
Yeah, I'm thinking Goosebumps would be kind of tough with that. If every 10-year-old had a cell phone, that might be.
Yeah, like, Mom, there's a monster running around. Oh, come on, you're kidding me. Look I took a picture. Like, see, there you go. Like, you suddenly have credibility, and that I don't believe you kind of goes out the window.
Well, and not only that, but it almost extinguishes the suspense aspect of it.
Exactly.
Because you get that instant gratification.
Right. And well, that's always why didn't you call the police? You just pull out your cell phone immediately. Like, so like by eliminating cell phones, I just think it gives more of an edge.
Mm-hmm. So I'm wondering.
The monsters can't be photographed.
There you go. There's your twist.
Yeah.
But then you got to go into the science and explain that.
No, they're supernatural beings. Like, at least in the movies, Dracula does not reflect the mirrors. There's no explanation. He's just supernatural. You suspend disbelief for that.
I have seen that in a lot with like I read a lot of vampire books. Yeah. So that's a lot of the things is vampires can't be photographed, can't be seen in mirrors. So that's always they're kind of like way out. I do like writing ghost stories, so that's something I would look more into, I guess, going forward.
And I think the not being overly overt with horror and gore adds to suspense.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you remember the first Jaws movie, there were very few scenes we actually saw the shark.
Yeah, it came at the end.
Yeah, and the reason for that was not necessarily planned. They were having a lot of mechanical difficulties with the shark.
Yeah.
So they had to improvise, and it worked out much better.
Yeah, because you build that tension, you build that suspense.
That is something that has stuck with me. I took a British Lit course back as an undergrad, and we read Beowulf. And I just remember my professor kept bringing up that like Grendel wasn't ever described. And then like that just really stuck with me because of course the monster was never actually described in detail. So whoever was hearing the story could picture their worst fears.
Right. Yeah. When I wrote Free Will, there are no mirrors in the afterlife. So we don't know what the main character looks like. It allows the reader to put themselves in the body of the main character.
That self-projection that has like really stuck with me in the back of my head. Ever like that was years ago that I heard that lecture, and just that part of that lecture, it like really stuck with me. He's like, of course the monster wasn't described because what's scary to you might not be scary to me. Exactly. And it has a bigger effect if you can project your own fears into this shadowy monster. Yeah,
sometimes the implication of it is scarier than the real thing. We, talk to every 4-year-old and you're going to get a different monster under the bed.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So I know that there are going to be some people that have this running through their head. So I'd like to ask the question, how similar is your book, The Midnight Man, to something like Blair Witch Project?
It's similar in the fact that I tried to like a little bit of like this quirky thing of like they use cameras because the main character is going to film school. So every bedroom or every room in the house has a camera as they're moving around as the lens shifts. So I tried to play off of the idea of the Blair Witch of teenagers that whole dissolving of the friend group and the added tension. Also similar to the Blair Witch, I kind of kept the demon in the background. So he like his presence is obviously looming over them the entire time, but he's not like in your face.
And he's never on camera.
Correct.
Yeah, it's that tension that you don't really know what he looks like.
You can feel him, but you can't see him.
And you can see the results of what he does.
Yes.
Which is, oh my gosh, creepy. He could not be here today, but I wanted to shout out to Connor Matthews, who was your editor.
Yes, he was amazing.
Yeah, he did a great job. And I think I wanted to talk to you about the editorial process because
Absolutely.
The reason I paired you with Connor is that you guys are of a similar age and you read similar materials, and that's something that I try to do is partner editors and authors together in that way. So what was the editorial process like for you? I mean, this is your first time doing this, so talk a little bit about that.
It was obviously intimidating because you're putting your baby out into the world and, someone's going to be looking at it with a critical eye. But Connor is really good at his work. He was very thorough, and he was very honest from the get-go. He walked me through, before I even sent him anything, he walked me through, this is what's going to happen. So I knew every step of the way what to expect. And he was very accommodating. So he sent me, I would send him a manuscript, and he was really quick because he was working around a vacation schedule. So he was very kind to accommodate me in that schedule as well. He wrote what is it? The little notes on Microsoft Word, the sidebar notes. Yep. So even things that he really enjoyed, or even his thought process he included. So not even just critiques. He was like, oh, I'm going to be looking out for this later in the story. And then, oh, I caught that thread that you were putting in there. So it was really neat just to be able to see what his thought process was as he was reading it. And then he even told me, he goes, I don't want you to respond immediately. After he sent me that, he goes, don't respond immediately. Give yourself a couple days to look it over and really think about it. And then it was like a meeting of the minds.
Yeah.
It was I'm not really sure what you're trying to say here, or I didn't really agree with one of his notes. And then he had just explained his thoughts on it. And I said, okay, now I get what you meant by that. And here's how I can tweak it to make that more clear. So I thought Connor especially had great communication. He really put me at ease. And I really appreciated, like I said, that this is what's going to come, because I'm a pre-planner. So
yay, a plotter, finally.
Right. So knowing what was coming next, he was like, okay, this is what the first round of edits is going to look like. Then we're going to talk about it. I liked that talking about it piece as well. So it wasn't just here's my notes, fix it and email it back. It was, here's my notes, we'll talk about it, then you can edit it, and then we will move on to the next step.
Right. And every author works differently with their editor because every editor has a different style. But I thought that you two really worked well together, and you found a way to mesh your thought processes. So that worked out well.
He was very gentle, which was nice.
He is. He's a gentle soul.
Right.
So when you think about the next book you're writing, are you approaching it like a brand new project, or are you keeping those notes that Connor gave you about this one kind of in the back of your head as reference material? I know authors who approach it differently. Some start fresh and don't want that background noise. I'm wondering how you approach that.
A few of his more stylistic notes I'm definitely keeping, like, because some of the things he said is like faults that I'm aware that I have as a writer. I've never been good at like scenery. So that was like something him and I like butted heads on a lot. He's like, you need more description. I'm like, Connor, there's enough. He's like, trust me, you need more. So that's just something I keep in the back of my head is because I'm not the best at scenery and description of scenery. So that's something I'm being very conscious of going ahead, especially because, like I said, small town, I want them going to the different places of the town.
Mm-hmm.
I want them to get that feel. Like, so I'm trying something a little bit different to try to help those weaknesses of my writing as I'm trying to really help, like, make the scene set the tone more than the characters, which I did more in The Midnight Man.
It is a different approach. Character writing versus plot writing. It is a completely different approach. And once you try both,
but it's a fun challenge.
Yeah, well, and once you try both, then you'll know which one is your favorite, which one you're more comfortable with. You know, for me, the relationships between the characters always come first, and the plot revolves around that.
Right.
So but it's different for everybody. You know, every author will have a different answer for that question. So you said you're a plotter, which I'm all for that. Yay. How do you keep track of your notes? Are you a digital writer? Are you an analog writer? And how do you do research?
I'm a little bit of both. So I like to write on paper just because I have more of a muscle memory. It's like a teaching thing. So yeah. I outline, like when I outline, I don't outline everything. I outline like big plot points that I want to happen. And then like insert the little things that come in between. So like the stitches that get you to the final project there. So I will definitely write everything out first and then I will type it. So like as my own sort of like editing process of getting it from the paper to a computer, because I just think it's safer on the computer than it is on paper. And then as far as research, I've done everything. Like another project that I'm working on with a friend, we're co-writing a book together, is set more in the 1800s. So that one, I have a binder because I've been going to libraries and researching what the town looked like then. And I just have scans of different documents that we found and pictures that we found just to kind of like, it's our big research binder.
Excellent. Anybody else have questions for Chelsea at this stage? No. You guys. God.
Oh, kind of. I kind of do.
Okay.
Men just don't talk. I don't get it. Okay, go Xander.
And that is, because I would actually play a Midnight Man sort of game. I would do that.
Don't do it. It's scary.
No, the Japanese have a game that you used to play on hot summer nights back in the Edo period and whatnot. And it was called, let me see if I can pronounce this correctly from my memory, a Hayaku Monogatari Kaidankai, which is a party for telling 100 ghost stories at night. And you light blue paper lanterns. And with every story you tell, you blow a lantern out. And by the time you get to the 100th story, the ghost of the blue lantern, the Ao Andan, comes out, and depending on how you want to believe it, some people say that she slaughters all the guests. Some people say she haunts you until the day you die or you kill yourself. And other people say she just sort of like comes out, says boo, and then goes away. However, a lot of these parties, people will only do 99 stories, and they will not they will not say that last story because they don't want to get taken by the ghost.
Of course.
So would you play that kind of game? And would you tell all 100 stories?
Oh, I like writing about it. I won't play any of these. I do enjoy Japanese horror, actually. I think they have some good legends and urban myths. But like I said, I like to write horror. I am too chicken to actually try. Andy Lockwood and I actually had a conversation about it when he very kindly read and reviewed my book. We were talking about it, and I said that was one of the things when we originally were going to make this film about it. I was like, we cannot film this in order. We cannot use our real names, because I didn't want to I don't want to tempt anything. I was on top of it. I'm like, we're not going to accidentally summon anything, because I like to be a skeptic with ghost stories, because I don't actually want to know if it's real.
That's valid.
I'm good.
That seems valid. Gabe or Michael, do you have any questions for Chelsea?
That's not comments, but
Yeah, go.
like I grew up watching horror movies, so I've seen pretty much everything. Not a lot of it kind of interests me anymore, but her book, when I read it, I was on the edge of my seat. I was gung-ho. I was all for it. She found a way to make it interesting and fresh in a way that nobody else has in a really long time. So
Yeah, I think that's a really good adjective, fresh. It definitely has a fresh feel and sound to it. And that's the other thing. You were great with the writing with the five senses. I mean, I got creeped out with creaky boards on the floor and I dripping water and oh my gosh, yeah, it completely creeped me out.
I'm not gonna lie, I creeped myself out writing it.
Well, but that's great, right? I don't know who said it. I think this quote keeps getting attributed to different authors, but it's no emotion in the reader, no emotion in the writer.
Right.
So if you want to create emotion within your reader, you have to start with yourself and put it on the page.
I was actually writing part of it in the library, and it was one of the more tense scenes. And again, you're in a brightly lit community place, but I was just so in the zone, imagining like the girl feeling the demon creeping up on her, or like, that I could feel like goosebumps on myself. Like you just get in the zone, man. Like it had to be real to me in order to make it real for them.
What's a genre that you would never consider writing?
Sci-fi.
Why?
The world building, the science part of science fiction. It's like just not like I've never kind of been interested in learning that kind of stuff, so I don't think I'd be the right person to breathe life into it. Like some people do it very well. I just have no interest in it. So I don't think I'd be the right one to like the idea of researching science in order to build a decent science fiction book is not very intriguing for me.
So after horror, and we're including paranormal in horror for the sake of this conversation, after that, what's your next go-to genre?
I don't know. I've always just enjoyed playing in horror and paranormal.
Okay,
that's
so
like just kind of like my favorite.
Ideas about stretching out and writing in another genre?
I've played with the idea of just more of like a contemporary, but we'll see if it ever like pans out.
Okay, like a contemporary lit fic kind of thing?
Yeah.
Okay. And then the other thing I wanted to ask you about, and I know you've had this conversation with Connor, and I want to touch on it here because up till now, we haven't really spoken with anybody about this. What's your take on fan fiction? Do you participate? Is it something that you think is a positive modality for writers, and why? Or is it a negative modality for writers, and why?
I grew up in the fan fiction like generation, so I am totally pro fanfic. I read a lot of it. I don't really write it because I don't know, just never been something that I felt drawn to, but I do enjoy reading it. So personally, I think it's like the greatest like compliment you can get is people like your characters enough that they can live out like their own sort of fantasy of, what they wanted to happen. So I just think it's a good tool for people to learn to write. Especially recently, we've seen a lot of fan fiction is being published as regular fiction now. There's quite a few. I just bought a book that is Hillary Clinton fan fiction.
Really? There is such a thing?
I bought it just because I knew it was a controversial book, and I was like, heck yeah, let's do it.
Wow. Okay.
So that book is just like, what if Hillary had never married Bill? What would her life be like? And it is a published novel, and that's a real person fan fiction.
I had not heard of that going on. That's pretty interesting.
Right? Like as I said, I'm like, it's not something I normally would have picked up. I'm like, it's controversial. I want to add to the controversy.
Well, and it's an interesting idea to get another perspective of the writing process.
Exactly.
Maybe there's some techniques in that book that you could translate into your own writing.
Well, there's a lot of
I think we all learn from each other.
Oh, for sure. I mean, there's a lot of books that I own that I have found out later was actually started off as Twilight fan fiction. Like, there's more books than you would think that started off as Twilight fan fiction. So I always like joke with people, like, apparently I like Twilight more than I thought because I'm finding all these fanfics. I mean, they changed the names, so they're not Twilight names, but I have about 4 or 5 that started out as Twilight fan fiction.
Right.
Without me knowing. So I'm like, apparently I like Twilight a lot more than I thought. Because I just keep buying it.
At least the foundational story,
Right.
I mean, because everything can be broken down to those 20 major plots, right?
Exactly. And that's what I've had the conversation with a lot of people who are critiquing some of the newer Star Wars movies, for example. And I said, like, because it's that hero's journey formula.
That's right.
People just don't really understand that. Like, I mean, like, there's a ton of stories that follow that exact same formula.
Exactly.
But it's a tried and true for it. Like, people keep watching it.
20, I tell everybody there's 20 master plots and 45 master characters in all of literature. You take a lit course in college, they're going to drum this into you, and they're going to give you all the ancient examples, and it holds true today. We're not really writing anything spectacularly new. We're just putting fun, interesting twists on stuff that the Greeks created, centuries ago.
Well, and that's what I think I like about fan fiction. I was actually reading an essay about how every iteration of King Arthur is actually fan fiction. Based on whatever region rewrote it, they inserted their own politics and their own customs into the legends. So fan fiction has been around, I think, since the dawn of time.
Yeah, I think so too. I think it's just been it's been given a different approval rating, right?
Right. I mean, like, I remember like the Anne Rice controversy of she like straight up was like, no fan fiction about my works ever. And I thought that was just really sad because, like I said, what a greater compliment. Like, what greater compliment is there? Is like, I love your book so much that I want to emulate
that.
Yeah,
right.
I think that is amazing. And I love, like, I just love some people's creativities. Like, it's cool.
Yeah, I would never do it just because I have so many stories. Drake is constantly pouring out stories out of my head. So I have enough of my own stuff to do.
I read it, but I don't write it.
I think it really is a good opportunity for authors to stretch their wings a little bit, learn some technique, and to understand how different things can intertwine in story.
Exactly.
Xander, Gabe, Michael, any other questions for Chelsea as we start to wrap this up?
Good.
When are we going to work on that haunted amusement park co-project?
Right? So Gabe found this like abandoned, like pictures of a real abandoned like theme park right by his house. I'm like, dude, let's go.
Like 2 miles from my house.
Right. So we decided that we were going to go investigate it together and then we were going to write a story about it. I'm like, I'm down. Let's go break into that place. Let's go write a book.
I don't know if breaking in is such a great idea.
I said, I'm like, we can just call them and tell them what we're doing and they'll probably let us walk around.
Call them and say it's a research project.
Exactly.
For a novel, and they'll let you in.
I got some serious vibes, like, and that's like how I start writing stories is you see something or like, like those pictures were so like moving and I was like, oh my gosh, this is like, I can feel the story just looking at them. Practically writes itself. Recently I saw pictures of a big boy graveyard and I'm like, I feel a story going on.
I was walking downtown Lansing one afternoon after having a business meeting. I saw a blue door and an entire story was developed out of a blue door.
Right?
You never know where you're going to get stuff.
Well, and like Xander has to tell me this ghost story and all of a sudden I'm like,
Yeah. Thanks, Xander. You did it.
But it's such a great idea for a party, like just to have tell 100 ghost stories in the middle of a hot summer night. Like what is better with your best friends? That's just great.
Right.
Throw in Hershey chocolate bars and a fire and I'm good to go.
Get some marshmallows. Yeah, I think that'd be awesome.
Right.
Yeah, then put all your lights on timers so they flicker on and off. But don't tell anybody in advance.
Yep.
Right. Anything else? Okay, Chelsea, you're offering a special discount for the book festival
Yes.
in June. Can you kind of tell us about that a little bit?
Yeah, so my book is generally, I believe, $8.50, so I will be selling it for $7. In order to get that price, you just message me on Facebook, or you can email me, CHELSEAMGOUIN with your address, and then we can set up a PayPal, and then I will mail it to you signed.
Awesome.
Awesome.
That's spectacular. And it's also available on Amazon, correct?
It is.
Okay. But if you want a signed copy, they have to go directly through you.
Go through me. Yep.
Awesome. Anything else before we wrap this up and let Chelsea get back to lunch?
I would suggest nobody actually play the game if you read the book, please. just throw that out there. If you're going to read it, please do not try to play the game.
I would do it. I would totally do it. I'm down. I'd do it.
No, I'm afraid Gabe's going to try it.
I'll totally try it.
I know you will.
I will do it. I'll do it with Gabe. We'll do it.
Oh, no, you
Do
too.
it. It'll be awesome.
Can we do
Okay,
it?
so here's the deal.
Do it at the amusement park.
If you guys, that's a good
Yes.
idea. So if you guys do this, I want you to write a blog post about it so that we can all share in your.
You have to film it so I can see the results.
Well,
We do
no,
it on Zoom.
don't film it. Just write a blog post about it, and then our imaginations can fill in the sort of
There you
details.
go.
All right.
Thank you, everybody, for coming out at lunch today. I really appreciate it. As I keep telling everybody, we are doing this all through the month of June, just to help promote independent authors, give independent authors a voice that maybe they wouldn't have, because we can't go to any of our festivals this year. Everything's closed.
This is my first festival.
Oh my God, that's so sad.
This is mine too, though.
Yeah,
Oh my
I published
gosh.
last November. And
Oh yeah, we're the three newbies. Gabe,
Wow.
you
this
too.
summer we're stuck.
Well, I'm really glad that Pages Promotions was able to offer you guys a little bit of a platform to maybe jumpstart things. As I've been telling everybody, once your videos go on our YouTube channel, feel free to link to it on your website. Use it as evergreen marketing. You can't actually take the video, but feel free to link to it every day of the week. Chelsea, when you get the next book out, we'll have you back in the TV studio for another installment of Indie Reads TV.
I appreciate it.
Awesome. All right. Thank you, everybody, for coming. Enjoy the rest of the month of the festival, and come on back tomorrow. We're having another one of these tomorrow. Check the schedule. Thanks, everybody.
Hey, thank you.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Yeah, live long and prosper.
Yeah, I can't do that.
I can do it. I can't see it, but I can do it.
Bye, everybody.